The night was black and endless. Snow fell like knives from the sky, cutting into the skin with every touch. The storm howled like a living beast, shaking the metal walls of the colony. But outside those safe walls, an alien widow walked alone, her cloak torn and her step slow. She had once lived with her mate, strong and kind, but the war had taken him away. Now she carried only a small bag. Inside it, the last picture of her family and a tiny piece of cloth from her home. Her people had been pushed out of the warm shelters when peace was signed. The humans called them outsiders. The rules of the colony were simple. No alien was allowed to stay, and tonight, in the middle of this storm, those rules were killing her. Her breath came heavy, turning to ice in the air, her skin pale and strange to human. Eyes shivered under the cold. She pulled her cloak tighter, but the snow cut through it like fire. The ground shook under the storm. The night endless, her legs weakened, but she looked ahead. There, faint and glowing, the lights of the human colony. Hope flickered in her heart. If only one door would open, she might live another night. She reached the first door. The house was tall and built strong, smoke rising from its chimney. She knocked, her hands weak but desperate. The door opened and a man looked at her with hard eyes. She whispered, "Please, I need shelter only for the storm." But his face twisted. "You should not be here," he said. "Go away." And he closed the door, leaving her in the storm. Her heart sank, but she moved to the next house. The snow pulled at her legs like chains. She knocked again, her voice breaking. A woman opened, saw her alien face, and gasped, "No, not here. Not in my home. Leave before the guards see you." And again the door shut, the light gone. The widow pressed forward, one door after another. Every answer the same. Every door closed. Every human eye filled with fear or hatred. She begged, she cried. But the storm drowned her voice. Her hope faded with each rejection. The snowstorm grew worse, the wind screamed louder. The lights of the colony blurred as her eyes filled with tears. Her body shook with cold. Her steps faltered. Her people had warned her. Humans would never help. But she had no choice. The storm cared nothing for rules or borders. The storm would kill her tonight. At last, she reached the edge of the colony wall. Her strength broke. Her knees gave way. She fell into the snow, the white ground swallowing her body. Her hands shook as she clutched the small bag to her chest. Inside was all she had left of love. Her tears froze on her cheeks. She whispered her mate's name, her voice lost in the storm. The colony gates glowed in the distance, so close yet so far. Behind those walls was warmth, fire, life. But for her, nothing. Only silence, only rejection. The storm pressed down harder. Her eyelids grew heavy. Darkness whispered too, her soft and final, but still. She lifted her head one last time. Through the snow, she saw the faint shadow of a small house at the far edge of the colony. Its light was weak but warm, glowing against the storm. She dragged her body forward, each movement tearing her apart. Her hand sank into the snow, her breath breaking. She reached the door. With the last of her strength, she raised her hand and knocked. The sound was small, almost lost in the storm. But inside, someone heard. The widow waited, her heart weak. Would this door close like all the others? Would she die alone in the snow, unseen, unloved, forgotten? The storm screamed around her, the night seemed endless, but she pressed her head against the door and whispered, "Please, just one chance." And then, the door creaked. It began to open. A shadow moved inside. Someone had answered. Hope flickered again in her dying heart. The storm paused just for a moment, as if the world itself was waiting to see what would happen next. The storm raged on, beating against the walls of the colony like a hammer. Inside, humans gathered in their warm homes, drinking hot soup, sitting close to fires, listening to the wind outside. But whispers spread quickly through the narrow streets. "An alien woman is here," someone said. "She is begging at doors." The words passed from one house to another. Fear grew in the hearts of the people. Not because she carried a weapon, but because she carried a face they did not trust. The alien widow, weak and trembling, stood before the small house at the edge of the colony. Her eyes were heavy with snow, her breath sharp with frost. The door had opened for her, but only a little. Behind it, a woman's face peeked out, pale and uncertain. The widow whispered, "Please, I need warmth just until morning." But the human woman stepped back, her eyes filling with fear. "You cannot stay here, not with us," she said, her voice shaking. "Go before the guards see you." And she pushed the door shut, leaving the widow once again in the storm. The widow staggered back, her knees shaking. Why did every door close? She was not an enemy, not a thief, not a monster. She only wanted shelter. Yet each home became a wall against her. Every human looked at her as if she carried death itself. Near the center of the colony, inside the council hall, men and women sat around a fire. They spoke of laws, of safety, of trust. "Aliens bring danger," one man said, slamming his fist on the table. "They fought against us. They cannot live with us," another agreed. Even as the storm grew worse, their hearts stayed colder. One younger voice whispered, "But she is alone. She has no army. She only has pain." Yet no one listened. The law was stronger than mercy, the council declared. No outsider may stay. Back in the streets, the widow tried again. She knocked on another door. This time a child opened it, eyes wide, curious. For a moment, hope returned to her heart. But the child's mother rushed forward, pulled the child back, and shouted, "Go away, you don't belong here." The door slammed shut so hard the sound echoed through the storm. The widow stumbled back, clutching her chest as if struck, her strength drained, her body frozen. She found a small corner near the wall of the colony. She pressed her back against the cold stone. Her hands shaking, her mind screamed at her to rise, to move, but her body felt heavy as iron. She thought of her mate, lost in war. She thought of her home world, burned and broken. She thought of the warmth of a family she would never feel again. Tears slid down her cheeks and froze into tiny crystals. Voices drifted through the storm. Two guards walking their patrol, their boots crunching in the snow. "She's still here," one said. "I saw her near the gate." "We should drag her out, leave her in the open. She will not last long," the other replied. They laughed softly, the sound sharp as knives. The widow pressed deeper into the shadows, her breath small. She dared not move, for she knew the law would not protect her. Only the storm would hide her. Inside one of the homes, a man sat by his window. He had seen her knocking, begging, falling. He had heard the whispers, the laughter, the cold voices. Something inside him stirred, something he could not quiet. But still he did nothing. Fear was heavy. Fear was stronger than compassion. He watched her shadow fade into the storm, and his heart burned with shame. The storm thickened. The world outside turned white and endless. The widow curled herself against the wall, trying to stay awake, her bag pressed to her chest, her only treasure left. The wind tore at her cloak, the snow piled around her body. She whispered to herself, to her mate's memory, I tried. Her voice was weak, lost in the howling night. The colony slept in warmth, safe in its walls. But outside, a soul slowly froze, unseen, unwanted. The law had spoken, the people had obeyed. And yet somewhere in the colony, one human heart still fought with the choice. The storm still roared over the colony. Snow beat against roofs, against windows, against every wall that held back the night. The people stayed inside, warm and safe. But outside, near the edge of the settlement, one life was fading into the white darkness. Her body shook as she pressed against the wall, the alien widow. Her skin was pale in the moonlight, her eyes dim. Her strength was gone. Yet she still clung to her small bag. Inside it, the last piece of her life, the last piece of love. She whispered softly, not even knowing if her voice was real anymore. Please, just one chance. From a nearby house, a man sat awake. He was no leader, no soldier, no councilman. He was only a mechanic, a man of tools and engines. He fixed broken doors, repaired heaters, and kept machines alive. But tonight, as the storm raged, his own heart felt broken. He had seen her earlier, knocking at doors. He had watched from his window as people turned her away. He had told himself, "It is not my problem." Yet he could not forget her eyes filled with pain. He poured himself hot water, but it tasted bitter. He threw more wood into the fire, but the warmth felt empty. Every knock he had heard. That evening, every door that slammed in her face echoed inside his head. And still, through the storm, he thought he could hear her cry. It was faint, carried by the wind, but it reached him, and it would not let him rest. His name was Aaron. He had fought in the war years ago. He knew loss. He knew the cold silence of death. He had seen friends fall beside him. He had returned with scars no one could see. Maybe that was why her pain reached him, because he knew what it was like to stand at the edge of despair. Aaron stood pacing the room. The law was clear. No alien could stay within the colony walls. If he opened his door to her, he risked punishment. The council could take his home, his work, his freedom. The guards could drag him away, his neighbors would whisper. His friends would turn from him, all because of one choice. He clenched his fist, staring at the fire. His mind battled itself. "Let her die. It is not your fault," one voice said. "But she is alive, and she will die if no one helps." Another voice whispered. The storm outside roared louder, as if demanding his decision. Aaron walked to his window. Through the swirling snow, he saw her faint shadow near the wall. She was barely moving. Her body slumped. He saw her lift her hand weakly, as if still trying, to knock on a door that would never open. His chest tightened. No law, no counsel, no fear could quiet the truth inside him. She would die tonight, unless he acted. Aaron grabbed his coat, pulling it tight around him. His boots hit the wooden floor, steady and firm. He opened his door, the storm rushing in like a wild beast. The wind screamed. The snow bit his face, but he pushed forward, his eyes locked on her. The widow lifted her head slowly, her eyes wide with disbelief. A human was walking toward her, her lips parted. But no words came, only the weak breath of someone too tired to hope. He reached her side, kneeling in the snow. Her body was ice cold, her cloak soaked and useless. Her hands shook around the bag she clutched. Aaron touched her shoulder, his voice low but strong. "Come, you cannot stay here." For a moment she stared at him, not trusting her own eyes. But when his arms lifted her strong and steady, she let herself lean against him. Her heart, weak and fading, found one more beat. Aaron carried her back through the storm. Each step was heavy, each gust of wind tried to push him down, but he did not stop. He pushed through until they reached his door. He kicked it shut behind him. The firelight washed over them both. The warmth wrapped around the widow like a forgotten dream. He laid her near the fire, pulling blankets around her shaking body. Her skin was pale, her breath shallow, but she was alive. She whispered something in her language, words he did not know. But the tone carried thanks. Aaron nodded. His heart, heavy but firm. He had broken the law. He had chosen compassion over fear, and there would be no turning back. As the storm raged outside, the colony still slept. But in one small house at the edge of the settlement, a choice had been made. A choice that would change everything. The widow, half conscious, looked at him with eyes full of sorrow and fragile hope. Aaron looked back, silent, but his eyes said what words could not. "You are safe here." The storm howled louder, as if angry that its prey had been taken. The night was not over, the danger was not gone. But for the first time, warmth touched the widow's heart, and for the first time in years, Aaron felt alive. Because sometimes one human's choice could stand against the cold of the whole world. The fire crackled in Iran's small home. The storm outside roared like an angry beast, shaking the windows, rattling the walls. But inside, warmth slowly pushed back the cold. The alien widow lay close to the fire, her cloak steaming as the snow melted away. Her hands still clutched the small bag, as if letting go meant losing. The last piece of her life, Aaron knelt beside her, placing a cup of warm water in her trembling hands. She looked at it with wide eyes, unsure. Her people had always been told humans were cruel. Yet here was one, offering warmth instead of rejection. She whispered a word, broken and soft. "Thank you." Her voice was heavy with exhaustion, but in her eyes there was a spark, a fragile light of hope that had not died completely. Aaron sat back, watching her. He could see the lines of pain carved deep into her face. He wondered how long she had been wandering before the storm. He wondered what horrors she had seen. And though she was different, alien skin, alien eyes, he saw something familiar. Grief, loneliness, a longing for kindness. Things no law, no border, no war could erase. The widow drank slowly, her hands shaking. Her body warmed, but fear still lived inside her heart. Every creak of the wood, every gust of wind against the walls made her flinch. She feared not only the storm but the colony itself, for she knew that if they discovered Aaron's kindness, they would punish him, and they would take her away. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Danger. For you." Aaron shook his head, his voice steady. "Let them come. You are safe here." But even as he spoke, footsteps crunched outside in the snow. Shadows moved near the window. The guards were patrolling, their lanterns glowing faint in the storm. Aaron stiffened, his heart pounding. He whispered quickly, "Quiet, stay low." The widow pulled the blanket over her face, her whole body trembling. The light of the guards passed across the window. For a moment Aaron thought they would knock, thought they would demand entry. But the lanterns moved on, their voices fading into the storm. The widow released a weak breath, her eyes wet with tears. Aaron sat back down, the firelight painting his face in orange and shadow. He felt the weight of his choice pressing heavier now. If the council found out, he would lose everything. But when he looked at her, so fragile, so broken, he knew he could not regret it. The night dragged on, long and endless. The storm howled, yet inside the small home there was fragile peace. Aaron gave her food, simple bread and soup. She ate in silence, every bite slow, as if her body had forgotten the taste of safety. When she finished, she leaned back, her eyes closing. Her breaths grew deeper, steadier. For the first time in many nights, she slept without fear of freezing. Aaron did not sleep. He sat near the window, staring into the storm. Every shadow made him tense. Every noise made him wonder if the guards would return. Yet behind him he could hear her soft breathing, and that sound gave him strength, he told himself. If I must fight the whole colony, I will. But dawn did not bring peace. The storm eased, the snow fell softer, but the whispers in the colony grew louder. People spoke of footprints in the snow. They spoke of a stranger wandering near the walls. The council called for searches. Some houses were checked, some doors knocked on. The people grew restless, and though no one had yet found her, it was only a matter of time. The widow woke to the sound of voices outside, her eyes wide, her hands clutching the bag again. Fear returned to her face. She looked at Aaron, whispering, "They will take me." Aaron shook his head, his jaw firm. "Not while you are in my home," he said. But deep inside, he felt the truth. It was only the beginning. The guards' boots echoed in the streets. Lanterns glowed in the daylight, searching every shadow. Neighbors whispered at windows, pointing, gossiping. The colony was hungry for control, hungry to drive fear away by punishing the weak. And in the middle of it all, Aaron's small house stood at the edge, silent, hiding a secret, hiding a choice. The widow sat near the fire, staring into the flames. Her face was tired, but in her eyes was a new question. Why had this human helped her when all others had turned her away? She wanted to ask, but fear kept her silent, and Aaron, watching her from the corner of the room, thought the same. Why? Had he risked everything for her? He did not know the answer. He only knew that it felt right. Outside, the storm had ended, but inside another storm was rising. A storm of suspicion, of whispers of fear. The colony would not rest until they found her. And Aaron knew, sooner or later, his door would be the one they knocked upon. The storm had passed, leaving the colony buried under thick white snow. The morning light touched the roofs, but the air was still bitter cold. Smoke rose from chimneys. People stepped outside, brushing snow from their doors. Yet no one spoke. Of the storm's beauty, they spoke only of whispers. "The alien woman is still here," someone muttered. "I heard someone saw her fall near the wall." Another answered, "Fear moved through the colony like fire through dry wood." Inside his small house, Aaron sat by the fire. The widow rested under blankets, her breathing steadier, her skin less pale. She looked almost human now in the glow of the flames. But outside, the world sharpened its claws. The guards marched through the streets, lanterns and rifles in hand. They knocked on doors, peered into windows. The council wanted answers. They wanted proof that no outsider had been given shelter. Aaron tightened his jaw, his heart heavy. He knew the search would reach his home soon. He looked at her, the widow who clutched her bag as if it held her soul. Her eyes were wide, frightened. She whispered, "They will find me." Aaron shook, his head slowly. "Not if we are careful," he said, though doubt pressed against his chest like stone. By midday, the guards came closer. Their boots crunched in the snow, their voices harsh and loud. One called, "Check every corner, she cannot survive outside long." Another answered, "Unless someone is hiding her." The words made Aaron's blood run cold. He knew what would happen if they knocked on his door. Not only would she be dragged away, but he too would be punished as a traitor to his people. The widow stood, her legs still weak. Her voice trembled. "You should send me out before they come. Save yourself." Aaron turned to her sharply. "No," he said, his tone firm. "If I send you out now, you will die, and their fear will have won." She stared at him, her eyes filling with something more than fear, something like disbelief. No one had ever chosen her life over their safety, and yet this human did. The sound of fists on doors grew louder. Neighbors opened. Guards searched inside. Children peeked from windows, whispering about the alien woman. One child pointed toward the edge of the colony. Maybe she went there near that house. Aaron's heart pounded. His house. They were coming. The widow's hands shook, her lips whispering prayers in her own tongue. Aaron moved quickly, pulling open a hatch in the floor. It was small, a storage space for wood and tools. "Hide here," he said. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the window where the guards. Shadows grew longer. Aaron gripped her arm, firm but gentle. "Trust me," he whispered. For a moment she looked at him, truly looked, and then she nodded, crawling into the dark space. Clutching her bag tight, Aaron closed the hatch just as the knock came. It was not a polite knock, it was hard, loud, demanding. "Open the door," a guard shouted. Aaron's chest tightened, his heart hammered. He took a deep breath and opened the door. Two guards stood there, faces cold as the snow around them. Their eyes scanned him quickly, then the room behind. "We are searching for the alien outsider," one said. "She was seen near these walls," the other added. Aaron forced his face calm, his voice steady. "I have seen nothing," he said. "The storm was fierce. Perhaps she died in it." The guards narrowed their eyes, stepping past him without waiting. They searched the small house, boots thudding on the wooden floor, hands pulling at blankets, opening cupboards. Aaron stood stiff, his fists hidden at his sides. He prayed they would not notice the hatch. Above the fire, the kettle boiled, hissing. The sound seemed louder than thunder in the silence. One guard paused, looking at the floorboards. Aaron's chest froze. But then the guard turned away, shaking, his head. "Nothing here," he muttered. They moved to the door, but before leaving, one stopped, his eyes sharp. "If you are hiding her, mechanic, the council will find out," he said. "And when they do, your kindness will cost you more than your home." Their boots crunched as they walked away, the door slamming behind them. Aaron exhaled deeply, his whole body shaking. He dropped to his knees, pulling open the hatch. The widow looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear. She crawled out, her breath fast, her face pale. "They were here," she whispered. "They almost found me." Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and steady. "They didn't," he said. "And they won't, not if I can help it." But even as he spoke, he knew the danger had grown. The colony was restless, the council suspicious. The search was only beginning. He had protected her this time, but how long could one man stand against a whole colony? The widow sat near the fire again, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. Her eyes shone with tears, not only of fear, but of something else. For the first time since she had lost her home, since she had lost her mate, she felt the strange warmth of being defended. It was fragile, dangerous, and uncertain, but it was real. And that made her heart beat stronger than the storm outside. The colony grew restless. Every corner buzzed with whispers. Every home carried fear. The alien widow had not been found, and that was enough to make suspicion grow like fire. The council demanded answers, they declared. Someone is hiding her, and if we find who, they will pay the price. Guards searched harder, moving house to house. Neighbors watched each other, eyes sharp, voices sharp. And though Aaron's door had not been marked yet, he knew it was only a matter of time. Each night, lantern light moved closer. Boots echoed louder. The colony would not rest until she was dragged into the snow. Inside his small house, Aaron kept the widow hidden. She stayed close to the fire, silent, her body still weak but healing. Her eyes followed him whenever he moved. Sometimes she whispered thanks in broken words. Sometimes she said nothing at all. But her silence was heavy, filled with fear and sorrow. She knew he risked everything for her, and that thought both warmed and frightened her heart. One night, as the storm quieted outside, Aaron sat at his table. The widow sat across, her hands folded tightly around the bag she never released. Finally, he asked, "Why do you hold it so close?" Her eyes softened, and she opened it slowly. Inside was a small piece of cloth, torn and worn, and a picture drawn by hand of her mate and her child. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "My family, gone in the war, this is all I have left." Aaron's chest ached at her words, for he too had lost people in the war, though no picture remained of them, only scars. In that moment, he understood her more deeply than words could carry. But their fragile peace shattered the next morning. A sharp knock thundered against his door. "Open up!" a guard's voice roared. Aaron's blood ran cold. He motioned quickly, and the widow slipped into the storage hatch again. The door shook with another blow, and Aaron opened it, his face calm but firm. 3 guards stood there, rifles slung over their shoulders. Behind them, neighbors watched, their eyes hungry for answers. One guard stepped forward, his voice harsh. "The council believes she is near here. Many have said you walk the streets at night suspicious. If you are hiding her, mechanic, you must hand her over now." Aaron's fists tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "I have nothing to hide. I walk because I cannot sleep." The guard narrowed his eyes, stepping into the home. They searched again, pulling blankets, opening cupboards. The widow pressed herself into the darkness beneath the floor. Her heart pounded so loud she feared they would hear it. The guards stomped above her head, but again they found nothing. Frustrated, they turned to leave. But one stopped, looking. At Aaron, his words cut like knives. "If she is here and you protect her, the colony will take more than your freedom. It will take your life." When the door closed, Aaron dropped heavily into his chair. His face was pale, his hands shaking. The widow crawled out slowly, her eyes wide with guilt and fear. "You cannot do this," she whispered. "They will kill you. I should leave. I should die in the snow." Aaron turned to her sharply, his eyes burning. "No, you will not die, not while I live." That night, the colony gathered in the council hall. The storm had ended, but the air inside was colder than ice. The council stood before the people. "We know someone is hiding. The alien widow," they declared. "She must be delivered to us, or the whole colony will suffer." The crowd murmured, some angry, some uncertain. Aaron stood among them, silent, his heart heavy. He knew they would come for him again, and this time, he would not be able to lie. This time he would have to choose openly. Would he protect her, or protect himself? The next evening, the guards returned. The knock was harder, the voices harsher. "Mechanic, step outside," they shouted. Aaron opened the door, standing tall against the cold. Behind him, the widow stood in the shadows, watching, trembling. The guards demanded, "Hand her over, or face the council's punishment." Silence filled the night. The neighbors leaned from their windows, watching, whispering. The guards raised their rifles, their eyes sharp. Aaron's heart pounded, but his voice rose strong. "She came to us with nothing but sorrow, with nothing but loss, and you would. Let her freeze in the snow. She is no enemy, she is no threat. She is only a widow who wants to live, and if you wish to take her, you must go through me first." The guards hesitated, stunned by his defiance. The widow gasped softly, tears filling her eyes. The neighbors whispered louder, some angry, some silent. For the first time, someone had spoken against the law. For the first time, someone had chosen compassion instead of fear. The guards raised their rifles higher. The night hung heavy. Every breath, every heartbeat waited for the next moment. Aaron stood firm, his body between them and her. He knew what this meant. He knew this might be the last stand of his life. But he also knew it was worth it. For some things were greater than fear, and some sacrifices were greater than survival. The rifles stayed pointed at Aaron. The guard's breath steamed in the cold night air. Behind him, the alien widow trembled in the shadows, clutching her small bag to her chest. The colony had gathered, faces pressed to windows, whispers filling the street. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence was heavier than the storm had ever been. Aaron's voice broke that silence. "You call yourselves protectors, yet you would let a woman freeze in the snow," he said. "She is no soldier, no spy, no threat. She is only a widow. She is only a soul who wants to live." His words carried in the night, stronger than the wind. The widow's eyes filled with tears, for no one had ever spoken for her. Before one guard stepped forward, his rifle steady. "The law is clear, outsiders are forbidden," he growled. "If we let her stay, the colony will fall into danger. We cannot risk it." Aaron stood taller, his voice steady. "The true danger is not her, it is our fear." He spread his arms wide, standing between them and the widow. "If you want her, then you will have to kill me first." Gasps rippled through the watching neighbors. Some stepped back in shock, others whispered louder. A child's voice broke from the crowd, soft but clear. "Why can't she stay? She looks so sad." The words cut deeper than any blade, for in that innocence was a truth the adults had buried. The guards hesitated. They were soldiers, trained to obey, but they were also men. They looked at Iran, who stood unarmed, yet unbroken. They looked at the widow, frail and trembling, her eyes filled with pain, not anger, and doubt flickered in their hearts. The council members arrived, their cloaks heavy, their faces colder than the snow. One shouted, "This man defies the law. He defies the colony. Seize them both." But the crowd stirred uneasily. Mothers looked at the widow and saw not a monster, but a reflection of their own fear. Fathers looked at Aaron and saw courage they wished they had. For the first time, the people questioned, was the law just, or was it only cruelty hidden behind words? Aaron turned to the people, his voice loud. "Today it is her. Tomorrow it could be any of you. We survived the war. We built this colony, not with hate, but with strength. And true strength is not in closing doors, it is in opening them." The widow stepped forward then, her legs weak, her body trembling, but her voice clear. "I do not ask for power, I do not ask for land, I only ask to live. I lost my family, my world. But I do not wish to harm yours. I only wish for one chance to survive." Her words pierced the silence. Some lowered their heads in shame, some wiped tears from their eyes. The guards looked at each other. Uncertain, the council barked orders, but their voices were weaker now. The people no longer listened so closely. One old woman in the crowd stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Enough. She is no enemy. We all saw what the storm did. She would have died if not for him. And if a single human can show compassion, why can't the rest of us?" Her words lit a fire in the hearts of others. Voices rose, not in fear, but in agreement. "She should stay," someone shouted. "She has done no wrong," another called. The whispers became a wave, and the council's power began to crack. The guards lowered their rifles slowly. One muttered, "We cannot shoot him, not like this, not in front of everyone." The council shouted louder, desperate, but the people no longer obeyed blindly. Something had shifted, something powerful. Aaron looked at the widow, then at the crowd. He felt the weight of every choice, every risk. But when he saw the people standing taller, no longer silent, he knew it had been worth it. He had given them courage by showing his own. The council finally relented, their faces sour with defeat. "Very well," one said sharply. "She may stay, but her life is her responsibility, not ours." Their cloaks swept as they turned away. The crowd cheered softly, relief filling the night. The widow collapsed to her knees, tears streaming. Down her face she whispered to Aaron, her voice breaking, "You saved me, not just with shelter but with your heart." Aaron lifted her gently, his voice calm. "No, you saved me too. You reminded me that being human means more than survival. It means compassion." The night grew quiet again. The rifles were gone, the council had retreated, and in the middle of the street, under the pale light of the moon, the widow stood no longer alone. The colony had seen her suffering, and they had chosen not to turn away. From that night forward, the story of the alien widow spread. Some called it rebellion, some called it foolish, but most called it hope. For one door had opened when all others had closed, and that single act of kindness had changed the hearts of many. The storm was gone, the snow was melting, and though the world beyond the colony was still cold and dangerous, inside a new warmth had begun to grow. The widow carried her grief still, but now she also carried something new, belonging, and Aaron, the simple mechanic, carried no regret, for he had learned that sometimes humanity was not about laws or fear. It was about one choice, one act of compassion, and that was enough to change everything.